Cheers and salutations.
Salutations. Yeah. Back in love.
I can't cut it out anymore. Anyway, hello, welcome to the Prog Connection, episode 4, and this I am your host, Olden Famous, with of course co-hosts Brian Famous and John Lance. How are we doing today, gentlemen?
We're doing
Good.
great.
Perfect. All right. So we had a pre-show discussion, and it was a pretty lengthy one at that. We are going to be talking we're going to be hammering down on a very specific site for the main subject of today. ProgArchives is one of the most prolific progressive rock items that you can find online. If you're going to be looking for prog rock, you're going to find ProgArchives pretty much immediately, mostly because it has the most information. If you are, it's very specific. It's down to the point. It has almost everything you could possibly find. When it comes down to the importance of prog rock, the website has built a very huge following, a cult following, thousands of reviews all the time, thousands of albums on there, hundreds of thousands probably. But we are going to be talking about the top 103 albums that we think should be on the top 100 and 3 that we think should not. So why not we get started? Dad, what's your number 1? Well, what's your first pick? Because we are going to be starting with albums that we do think shouldn't be there.
Okay, who's going first?
Dad.
Dad. Okay.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes. Go ahead, Dad.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to, was it number 40? Joel, you got the list in front of you there?
I can
43?
grab it.
It's a Dream Theater here. It's a 40-something.
43.
Hold on a minute, because if it's
Number
the one that I
44.
think, if it's the one
Yeah,
that I
so-
think we're
Number
going to
40.
be talking about,
I was not terribly familiar with this album, but Zoe and I went
36. 36. Metropolis Part 2 Scenes from My Memory is the one that you
number
were-
36?
Yeah.
Okay, number 36.
Yeah.
We went and meticulously listened to all of these albums, including this Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory by Dream Theater. And
Well,
I didn't think it was prog at all. It's just not a prog album. It's a metal album, and it's a really noisy, bad album for me. Like, I mean, I really hated it. Like, I mean, the guy's vocals were the worst maybe I've ever heard in my life. The guy
Oh.
can't sing.
oh,
He couldn't sing to save his life. I mean, Peter Hamill, he's not. Peter
Wow.
Gabriel, he's not. So, I mean, I really dislike this album. I'm not, just for the people who are, watching it, I'm not criticizing their ability to play. I didn't think the musicianship was bad or anything like that. It's just, I didn't like it, and I didn't think it was, I thought it was a metal album. And not particularly interesting metal album, because I think what they're trying to do there is kind of like a Queensryche Operation Mindcrime kind of sound, which I've stated before on this podcast that I like Operation Mindcrime. I think it's a very good album, but I certainly wouldn't call it prog. It's metal.
Mm.
I don't know. Is there really people? Zoe, is there really people that think Queensryche is a prog band?
I don't particularly know the answer to that.
They're a metal band.
I would say, based on observation, that they sound more like.
And from what I heard from this Dream Theater thing, these guys are a metal band. They're not a prog band. They're a metal band. There's nothing wrong with being a metal band. It's just I don't like metal.
Mm-hmm.
They're a metal band, and I really severely disliked this album. It was unlistenable for me, but I did listen to it.
We did
So,
listen
yeah,
to
I
about
would-
80% of it.
Yeah. Some of the other stuff, I mean, I think John gave me a few suggestions, and we did listen to a few other things from Dream Theater. I don't think they were on the top 100, but they were actually a little bit better. I wouldn't go so far as to call it prog, but it was better.
It's commercial. Falling into Infinity, I think, for what, third studio album,
Something
and
like that.
it's the most commercial and to be honest with you, it's actually my second favorite Dream Theater, other than Octavarium. And Octavarium, a lot of people don't really like it, but that's also considered more on their prog rock. They're more mellower side. I prefer the less metal part of Dream Theater, like Images and Words. I prefer that. That's my third favorite. I don't like the heavy part of Dream Theater. I love the more melodic, where they actually just play and not got to show off like I got to do everything like Frank Zappa did in the day, and that's what they're trying to do. I mean, the odd time signature flashiness, which is called the formulated prog. I mentioned that in a previous episode. There's two forms of prog. You have the formulated prog, which is keyboards, the odd time signatures, and the whistles, and then you have progressive rock, which, in my opinion, is what Steven Wilson does and what David Bowie does. Now, some people don't call David Bowie prog rock, but he was progressive, where each album is different, and that's the true definition of progressive. But as a community, when we listen to prog rock, if a band changes their sound for any reason at all, the community goes in an uproar over it, which makes no sense because we like progressive rock where it's supposed to change, but yet we love the formulated version, if you understand what I mean. That's another topic for another day. But with Dream Theater, that would be, I'm relating to that.
Right, so I don't. Do you want me to do the next one as well at the same time, or all
no,
three?
We will go to John next with his number 3.
Okay, my number 3 that I feel does not deserve to be on here. People will crucify me for this. Pink Floyd Animals. I don't like Pink Floyd Animals. I don't like most of Pink Floyd's music in general. I only like maybe 2 albums that may have the Roger Waters period on it. That would be Metal and Wish You Were Here. My honest opinion, most of my pit is this top 100 list should only have 1 or 2 albums by each band on it. It shouldn't have 4 to 5 albums by each band based on the algorithm, but based on how the ratings are on here by collaborators and the other people, the reviews, there's more than 1 album by each band. That is my main gripe about the top 100. So I'm not a fan. I'm not really a big Pink Floyd fan. I'm more of a David Gilmour era person. That's my personal preference. I can understand why people love Animals and why they would want it in the top 100. It's just not for me. If I'm going to pick a Roger Waters era, it's most likely going to be Metal or Wish You Were Here. And I prefer Metal, to be honest with you, out of all of them, if I'm going to hear a Roger Waters era Floyd album at all. So that would be my number 3 pick that I think does not need to be on here. That's just my personal preference. No offense against any in the community.
So Zoltan,
Yeah.
I just wanted to pick up on something John said there because it's very important that ProgArchives does very, very in full transparency. They do give you the formula for the algorithm as to how they calculate the various reviews that go into it. And when you read it, it does tell you point blank that if you're a collaborator, you are 20 times, you count for 20 people, basically. You count as 20 times everybody else, which means that the list is very biased is the correct word statistically, but I don't want to make it sound prejudiced, but it is
by
let's say
technical
tilted.
term, biased.
You're biased, tilted towards their opinions, which are okay because they're allowed to have their opinions, and I'm okay. It's their website. But are those opinions representative of the wider progressive rock fan community? Maybe not, right? We don't know, because the only way we'd know is if we had a more random sample. And I'm not saying they could even do a random sample. Now,
The way
John and I were discussing before. Can you, in the filters, can you change it so that the collaborators' weight is 1? so that they get the same weight.
That's what I was going to suggest, because I would love an option for that, for the collaborators' reviews to be weighted at least less, so that it brings up a lot more of the albums that a lot of people actually bring up a lot, rate a lot higher, outside of the ones that are highly
I
rated
think
by
that'd be the
collaborators.
smartest thing to do if they added that option, without sounding like Brian was saying, being prejudiced with the biasism. If we took the collaborators' ratings to filter it out on here, but there's no, to my knowledge, there's not a way to do it.
No, not
That
from
would
my
probably
knowledge
give
either.
a rough idea of what the general populace of the people that visit the site and review, what the overall versus 20 points for one review by a collaborator. They're kind of the algorithm is going to show. This is why we have 4 to 5 albums by the same band on here. Is Yes a bad band? Is Genesis a bad band? No, they're not a bad band. But these are bands that are in the 70s, and there was a topic on Sea of Tranquility and other YouTube channel sites, prog rock bands that had good 4 to 5 album runs, and Yes and Genesis were them, but do they all belong on the top 100? There's like thousands of bands out here. In my honest opinion, 1 or 2 max should be allowed by a band on the top 100.
Right. So what you're saying is basically that it's pretty easy to figure out that one of the collaborators is a massive Yes fan, and one of the collaborators is a massive Pink Floyd fan.
Yeah.
And they put all of their favorite albums as 5 stars, and then it gets pushed up higher in the rankings. In other words, they know that they can manipulate their own rating, right?
A little bit. I don't know about, like,
because they're basically saying your opinion doesn't count as much as theirs, right?
Right.
They're saying that
they in their review.
There's nothing wrong with that because it's their website. It's not mine.
Yes, that's how they run it. It's their own website.
That's how they run it.
Yes.
But if you're just coming there sort of naively as a fan, you might think that is very representative of everybody coming to the website. But clearly,
exactly.
Clearly, their own algorithms tells you that that's not the case. It's not a random sample of people who come to this website.
No,
it's very heavily weighted towards the collaborator's opinion because they get more say than everybody else.
True.
Right.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll stop with the conversation about the algorithm.
Yeah. Should I get to my number 3?
Sure.
All right. So, while I did say that this is going to be picking on albums that we think don't deserve the top 100, I'm also going to make the distinctive claim and say that I am also going to make it that albums that I think we can put further down the list, or genuinely just albums that we don't think should be as high as they are. And I think all of my picks are great examples of that. So, to start us off on a little bit of a lighter note, even though it's gonna turn a few heads, I'm going to start with probably one of the most popular progressive rock albums of the last 50 years. Maybe more. Dark Side of the Moon. I genuinely think that this is a great album. It is the definition of probably like overplayed. It has a lot of songs on here that are super iconic. You have Time, you have Money, you have you have a ton on this album that is just so very clearly the definition of what Pink Floyd was. Us and Them, obviously, being a very key moment of theirs. Great Gig in the Sky, obviously, of course. But this is probably the album that has the most front to back has the most songs that people will be like, "Oh, okay, I know." The next up is The Wall, which I'm not exactly sure is on the top 100. I don't think it is. And if it is, I'm going to lose. It's not. However, it's definitely close. But yeah, this is an album that I think just you have a ton on Dark Side of the Moon that is super good, and the mastering of this it's, if I'm not mistaken, this is engineered by the great Alan Parsons, isn't it not?
Yeah, I believe so.
This is
Dark Side.
it's their most iconic album. I cannot dispute that. I will not argue that this is their most iconic. However, I will argue that they definitely have better albums. And I would probably put this somewhere around 30th, 40th, maybe 50th. Instead of in the top 10. Iconic as it may be, there are other albums by this band that I say deserve the top 10 for much more than that one. Plus, there's too much. Dad, your number 2, please.
Okay, so I'm going to stick with the same theme as my first choice, which is that metal bands ought not to be on ProgArchives Top 100. And so I'm looking at number 54 here, which is this Opeth Still Life.
Ah, yes.
And we did listen to this a few days ago, Zoltan. And I mean, I really, really, really hated this album. I mean, the growling vocals and all that stuff and the noise, it's just, it is literally put a gun against your head. It's just, and it is not prog in any way, shape, or form. It's a bad metal album.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yeah, it shouldn't be on ProgArchives because it's just not prog. That's, it's just like Dream Theater. They're not really prog, they're metal. This was like a grungy pile of noise to me.
Right. Now, I can comment on him saying that album, I will agree. I don't like the Opeth growl metal air, but once Watershed came out, which was half clean, and then you had mostly growl still, Opeth went in a different direction. I don't know which album it was. It may have been Pale Communion and the other one I can't
Heritage.
think. Heritage. They went into a prog rock without the metal part. I mean, and I prefer that era of Opeth, but like I said, your dad heard a couple of them things and he said it's not bad, but the fact that the band did the previous stuff kind of leaves a sour taste in his mouth. So I can understand where he's coming from there.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of number 2, John, what's your number 2?
This is gonna be a tough one. I was debating either Red by King Crimson or the debut by King Crimson, and I'm gonna go with Red. Why would I choose Red? I'm not really a big King Crimson fan. I never really have been a big King Crimson fan. I do like the album from the 70s, Islands. It's about the only album I prefer by King Crimson at all. By the band. That's a personal preference. And then you have the 80s King Crimsons, which I don't mind at all. I just never been a big Robert Fripp fan. I do like the Adrian Bello. I love their technicality. There's also a new band coming out that's doing a live. I don't remember what they call themselves. It's going to have the drummer of Tool, Steve Vai on guitars, and Adrian Bello, and they're doing all the 80s King Crimson album song hits. I would go see that in a heartbeat if I had the money to see it because I prefer Steve Vai. I just never been a Robert Fripp fan. Do I like the King Crimson style of music by other bands? Yes, I love the sound. I'm just not a Robert Fripp fan. It just never clicked with me. I prefer, if I want to choose whether I'd rather hear Adrian Bello do the 70s King Crimson stuff if he could do it. Oh, in a heartbeat, I would love to see what the difference of that been. That, like I said, personal preference. This is my opinion. I'm not really a big Robert Fripp fan, but if Adrian Bello did the '70s stuff, it probably could sound better. Just not for me. Red.
Mhm.
If I had to pick between those two, I believe the debut has a lot of good hits because it has John Wetton on it. But in my honest opinion, I prefer John Wetton more in the UK and Asia over King Crimson. But the debut album was what got the band. I just don't like Red over the debut if you're going to choose between the Wet. That's personal. If I would have picked the debut, probably more people would have crucified me on here. I had to choose one of the two, but I picked Red. That'd be my number 2.
All right. My number 2 is another album by a band that I think is just. This is probably the there are Pink Floyd. I mentioned is a band that I think has an album that is so critically overrated that I just think now you just have at least 1 or 2 albums by this band, maybe 3, that I would play over Dark Side of the Moon. The biggest offender of this is Rush. Now, we're getting to this, and I'm gonna. How big is their discography, Dad? About 14, 15 albums?
Rush?
Yeah, Rush.
I think I got like more than 14, maybe 17, 16. I forget.
About that. It is
Could be
easily.
more.
This is easily their most popular album. I know everyone loves it, but Moving Pictures.
I would agree.
It is. I would say it is the staple of Rush and the hits that they had. You do have songs like Tom Sawyer. You do have songs like YYZ and Limelight. I love Red Barchetta, and I think Camera Eye is great. Witch Hunt's fine. Vital Signs is very mid. Limelight's an okay single, actually. I don't think it's very good. That's my thoughts on it, though. And of course, I would also say this is their album where, yes, they have a lot of the technicality and this is probably Geddy Lee at his most comfortable with his voice and not tending to scream at the top of his lungs every album like he does on Hemispheres and A Farewell to Kings. However, I would also argue that I would probably listen to Permanent Waves, Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres, Caress of Steel, potentially even 2112 over Moving Pictures, just in terms of songwriting aspect and listening to them. This is a very well produced album. There's no question about that. This is a great album, but I would easily say that of all the prog legends, this is the album that is the most overrated among prog lovers, mostly because you have so many other albums by this band that I think just encapsulate their sound a lot better. And even if you want to listen to an album where he's not screaming, I would pick Permanent Waves over Moving Pictures, maybe even Signals if I'm feeling.
I agree. I agree with your pick with Moving Waves. Now, is it a bad album?
Yeah.
No, it's not a bad album. The thing is, I feel that it being a top 100 out of, there's multiple Rush albums on here, but the main reason why I feel it's overrated is because when you listening to FM radio and you hear Rush come on there, the first 2 to 3 songs are played over and over and over again.
And it's almost always
a lot of
Picture songs.
It leaves a sour taste in your mouth because we're prog rock fans and we're trying to get away from commercial radio. Where, as in, if they play a song off a Permanent Wave, like off of Rush. It's very rare compared to the wait, the one album was Moving Pictures, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I always get Moving Pictures and Permanent Waves has two different songs. There's another song that's very popular on. I think the Spirit of the Radio is on.
Spirit of the Radio is on Permanent Waves, but I would say that
Yeah,
that's probably.
they hardly
Was that the
ever
only big
play
song
that.
on that album? Was that the only big song?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, because you had stuff like Jacob's Ladder, Entre Nous, and
Yeah, that's good songs and
those
all
are great
but
songs. Absolutely great. Different
the
Strings is
only
great.
the only albums they actually play any songs off is Moving Pictures and that one, if I'm not mistaken, that one song off of
Tom
Permanent
Sawyer.
Waves, and you hardly ever hear anything live on the radio
Yeah.
other than that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
Limelight
that
is
album
always playing. Closer to the Heart is always playing too, because that's a very
That
iconic
too.
song. That's the most
That's
iconic
good.
song by on Farewell to Kings. Let's be very clear here. But again, I would very much prefer listening to like Xanadu or Cygnus X1, Book 1, Cygnus X2, Book 2. Obviously, Hemispheres is so good. But again, Rush doesn't have that with Moving Pictures. I don't. Camera Eye comes close. It's very close to being that, but it doesn't hit the mark for me. Not nearly as much as stuff like Xanadu and Cygnus X1, and of course you also have La Vida and Trees is also super great. Trees is wonderful. Dad, number 1.
Okay, so if I had to pick the album of my 3 that I disliked the most, I would have picked the Dream Theater because it was really truly awful. But for my number 1, I'm actually going to pick an album that's actually I would consider as a prog album. So it's in the running. It's just not my taste. I just don't like it. This one here.
A Drop of Light.
Yeah, Drop of Light, All Traps on Earth.
A lot of people love that album. Some people think it's over. Why? Why is that not as good as Engelgard? I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's a solo project by the bass player, but I'm curious why you won't.
No, I did think it sounded like a lot like Engelgard. I for some reason it just like I do like a lot of the Engelgard stuff, but this one just I don't know, I just didn't find it compelling. I found it boring. So you know,
well,
what I mean?
it's made by the bass player. If I'm not mistaken, the bass or the drummer. I think it's the bass player of Engelgard, and there's no other members on it. So
it's weird.
The other it's not. It's by an Engelgard member, but it's not Engelgard. And I've heard a lot. It's not just his opinion either. There's a couple of people think that album is a little bit overrated. Some people like it, some people don't. I've heard it. I don't own the album. I don't own anything by Engelgard because their stuff is like $35 to $50 for their album because they're so limited print. Now, they're 50. I want to go order okay. I want the third album.
You can get.
Other than that,
I believe you can get the first 2 albums on their Bandcamp, the remastered versions, for a relatively good price. And I have the digital version of Hybris on remastered, which sounds phenomenal. But I would like Epilogue. But again, with Engelgard, I really think that they struck the iron with Hybris, and then I don't know how much I'm willing to listen to the other 2 that they released.
Zoltan?
That's interesting.
I'd rather listen to this album than the Dream Theater or the Opeth.
Dad, I can't see it perfectly. You're gonna have to put it in.
No, the same album. I'm just saying I'd rather listen to this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Than Dream Theater.
Right.
Any day of the week. I just don't think it's worthy of the top 100 in any way, shape, or form. That's all.
I see. Okay.
Like it's a prog album, but it's not a great prog album. It's just it's not going to be like Close to the Edge. I mean, my God. All right.
Makes sense. My favorite Engelgard, a lot of people say, is the third album, the Belgians. I prefer that one the best over Hybris. That's personal. I don't know why.
I find that they're very good. I do like a lot of the stuff that they did on the new album. I'm going to have to listen to a little more, but the fact that I believe they went fully instrumental on that album, that's something I can fully 100% respect. John, you're number one. What's your number one? Oh, boy.
Oh boy, if
Oh,
I had to
boy.
well, I don't want to steal your number one pick because you've already told me that, so I won't list it. And I'm gonna probably go. I was gonna say probably Jethro Tull's Aqualung, but nah, I'm gonna go with Miles Davis, the kind of blue. I
Ah,
mean,
okay.
it's labeled in the side genre a jazz rock fusion, and Miles Davis, in my honest opinion, really didn't start doing that until the Bitches Brew. Now, if I'm gonna pick between kind of blue or in a silent way, I'm gonna pick in a silent way any day over the one
That's
I
an
think I
album
did.
that I don't think Dad, have you listened to In a Silent Way?
That one, if I'm not mistaken, has John McLaughlin on it also. I think it came out
Whoa.
before or after. I don't know. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I prefer In a Silent Way over Kind of Blue.
That's
It's
fine. That's
just
great.
I don't fit. I mean, you had the top 100 with Prague, but it's Miles Davis before he went into the fusion era. Now, does fusion belong on the top fusion albums? Does any of these fusion albums belong in the top 100? If I was to pick any of them that may deserve to be in here, it'd be Return to Forever or the debut by Mahavishnu Orchestra. For me, Return to Forever is a little more proggier, whereas the debut by Intermountain Plain sounds more like Jimi Hendrix and John McLaughlin on steroids, just shredding his butt off. But
Mm-hmm.
for Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, which to me is more not in the fusion era, the electric period of Miles Davis, more like the end of the bop era, should not be in the top 100. In a silent way, that's in here. I prefer that one. That should not be in the top 100. In my honest opinion, if any of the Miles Davis albums belong in the top 100, it'd be the Bitches Brew one because that's where Miles Davis created the jazz rock fusion genre to begin with. That's
Mm-hmm.
where we got fusion from. That's where it came from. But the other album I just mentioned, number one, I wouldn't pick the. I already forget the. There's so many albums.
No.
Kind of flew over in a silent way.
Yeah. Uh, that's fine. My number one. You didn't do this, but I'm gonna. So
I
let's
know.
talk about it. Let's talk about it. This is a visual representation for King Crimson. I'm gonna go with the debut because, as much as I actually think that In the Court of the Crimson King is quite the album indeed, I say it's number 3. Okay. Yes, I actually very much like 21st Century
I'm
Schizoid Man.
thought you picked that for number one because I was expecting you to pick the W band, but you didn't.
I was going to say Wobbler from Silence to Somewhere. I was going to do that, but I opted out mostly because
That's
of
an
the fact that,
honorable mention. That's an
yeah,
honorable
it's
mention.
my honorable mention in a way. I don't love the krautrock sound that it has. There are times where I'm like, okay, this sounds like Wobbler, but I'm also thinking like,
Lark's
But
tongue and aspects, that one.
yeah, this is just Lark's tongues. But I don't think we have the debut on physical, but that's fine.
Okay.
So I actually do enjoy the songs on here. 21st Century Schizoid Man is good. Epitaph is good. Of course, In the Court of the Crimson King, the title track is very good. What else is good? What else is good here? Moonchild is there too. Yeah. I Talk to the Wind. I don't actually remember that one, but I can just say right now that as iconic as this album is, top 10, maybe top 20, yeah, I don't know how much I want to say that this is the third best prog rock album of all time. Third is a little bit of a
Yeah,
I understand how iconic it is, and I respect how iconic this album is, yes, it is an extraordinarily iconic album. You can't really get a true definitive starting point much else in terms of relevance. Yeah, King Crimson in the Court of the Crimson King is probably the most relevant starting point in prog you can point to. I'm the kind of guy who would probably not even have a single King Crimson in the top 10. That's my thoughts on it.
Other than Islands is not in the top 10, and to be honest with you, most people think Islands is too mellow. It's my favorite album by the band because it's the most different sounding than any. Yeah, it's more pastoral than any of.
Islands. Lizards was also ridiculously pastoral too. I have no idea what's going on there. That epic, the Dad and I listened to the epic. That just reminded me. I was like, okay, so this is good, but this is just 70s prog. This just sounds as pastoral as anything I've ever heard from any other band.
I like Lizards. Lizards is not a bad album. It's just it sounds like it's got John Anderson like on a song. It's good, but Islands is different. It's more pastoral in a different way, whereas Lizard is more like, okay, this is pastoral, more like Tales from the Topographic Oceans. I've already heard something like this before, but it's not Tales. It's not a Tales clone, but it's more in that kind of. I've heard this before.
Right. So shall we move on to 3 albums that we think should be on there? Dad?
Okay.
Want to start us off?
Yeah, again, we could go back to talking about the algorithm.
Yeah.
And is it because of the weight of the collaborators that certain albums don't appear in the top 100? But it's unbelievable to me that there isn't more Emerson, Lake and Palmer all the way through the top 100. You know, I mean, so I would say Trilogy should be there. Probably in the top 10. Tarkus should be there. Okay. I don't know where they are. Maybe they're like at 150th or something. I don't know.
I think they are somewhere around there.
Yeah, so my pick for my third pick, if I only have to pick one, I'll pick Trilogy by Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
All right.
It should be there. Okay.
All right. John?
Albums that are not on the list that should be on there. I'm gonna go. I have 2 albums out with me. I had to dig. The other one is buried. I couldn't get it out in time.
Yeah.
There's no Kaipa anywhere on the top 100. And to be honest with you, this is the second album by Kaipa with Rolling Stone on. I was gonna put Keyholder on there, but I'm like, nah, I'd rather do this out of the 70s album, the debut, or this should be on the top. Period.
All right.
Period. Kaipa's second album.
Very.
Because that's where my second album's gonna come on. It's not on there next. It has a member of Kaipa and.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. My number one. My third pick. I think that this is probably their best work. I was going to put either a Camel album or another IQ, but I opted for a better IQ album. So I'm going to go with this one. My honorable mention was going to be I Can See Your House From Here by Camel, because other than maybe Remote Romance, which I would say is the album that the song that may throw it off a little bit, it's definitely got so much on it that you can't be. It's very prog. It's not too cheesy if you just focus on the really really good prog songs, which are about 80% of the album. But this album is not quite on the symphonic prog side, but they are definitely on the prog light aspect. Great songwriting, great atmosphere, good production, very familiar sound. And I believe that this was released in 2016. Riverside's Love, Fear, and the Time Machine. And
Interesting.
I really, really enjoy this one. I think Toward the Blue Horizon is phenomenal. Discard Your Fear is very prog light. All of this album is prog light. It's just
I would
very.
agree
It's
that should be in a top 100, and actually, that's my second favorite Riverside. I did not like that album at all when I first heard it. Zoltan, on the other hand, is like, try it again. Like, it's been a decade, and there's albums I did not hear in a decade, and I'm like, wow, that would be one of them.
it's
And to be honest with you, the album that they do have there by Riverside that
Second
is
Life
on the
Syndrome.
top 100, I would not put that one on there. I mean, it's the
No,
most
me neither.
popular album. It's the second album of an album trilogy. I mean, so you
Yeah.
have to have part 1 and part
Mhm.
3.
Uh,
That, in my honest opinion, is the most overrated Riverside album
Yes.
out of their whole discography. Is the second one, but out of the whole trilogy, if I had to pick, it would be the Rapid Eye Movement's my favorite
It's
part.
good. I
But
actually like
I
Rapid Eye.
I would put ADHD in there over the Second Life Syndrome,
Understood.
and then maybe the one you put in there second. But if I had to pick
I
between
love
one or
that
the
song.
other, you'd put that one. I would put the ADHD.
That's
my
pretty good. Yeah, I would say that this is the album where they hit the softness the best.
Right.
They were soft
The most
throughout, and it worked. It was a formulated album. It was very just from tracks 1 to 10, very soft, digestible prog light, and it's very good. There's not a single weak song on there. It's very well written. It's just good songs. Very good songs. Dad, you go number 2, please.
Number 2.
Yes, please.
Okay, so again, my point of view is it's more of disbelief that these albums are not there.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm not saying that just because I like them that they should be there, but I'm surprised other people don't think the same because they're so good.
Yeah.
My number 2, I will go with UK is In the Dead of Night, the debut.
Yeah, the
why
UK.
How can it not
That's
be
not-
there? I don't get it. It's classic. So that's my number 2.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
John, your number 2.
Oh, my number 2 is not in the top 100 at all.
Mm.
And most people are gonna like, why this? Okay. This is my favorite album of all time, so
I
you
see
already
it.
know where this is going. This is the Sum of No Evil.
Is that the one from the
this
box set?
This is the box set version. I
Yeah.
had the remastered version somewhere buried in this closet. I wasn't able to get it before we
That's
had
fine.
shit.
Don't worry about it. Mm.
So
Great album.
yeah,
Great pick. I love it.
Great pick.
by the Flower Kings there's not one album in the top 100 by the Flower Kings. I don't even think they're in the top 200 if I'm not mistaken.
There's not one in the top 250, I don't believe, as far as that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
That would be my number 2.
Yeah.
Or what should be there is not.
Mm-hmm.
But that album is, like I said, it's my personal favorite. If any should be in there, most people would pick Stardust. We are a Flower Power at least, but that's not even in the top 200 at all. That's just personal preference. That's my favorite album. But most people there to pick the Flower Kings, it'd probably be Stardust. We are. Why is that one not in there at all? But for personal preference, this is mine.
Right. My number 2, because they already have an album in the top 100. But this is another. This is an interesting one because I think that this is in the top 200 somewhere. But I think I could have picked this one or another one, and I think I would have gotten a very similar result either way. But Dark Matter by IQ.
I was gonna pick that, but I don't have the CD no more, so I'm glad you did.
Yeah, you got everything from Sacred Sound, Red Dust Shadow, very, very good. You Never Will, Born Brilliant, and then Harvest of Souls, which is probably at least one of their best epics, if not their best. Maybe their best, at least tied. I would say Harvest of Souls and Without Walls are at least tied, maybe. it depends on my mood. Harvest of Souls is such a supper's ready song from them, but I also think that Without Walls is probably the song where they hit a totally different level of uniqueness and they hit the sound that is IQ. So I'll
that
go
album
with that.
should be in the top 100. Period. Out of all the IQ albums that are that you had the album before called The Seventh Sign, I think.
Seventh House.
Seventh House, not Seventh.
Yeah,
Sign.
Seventh
Okay,
House. Seventh House. Yeah.
Seventh House. That's a good album also, but
Yeah, good.
from Seventh House all the way to what they had now, if any of the albums belong on the top 100 out of between Seventh House until I forget the name, the last one.
I'd even say Ever is phenomenal. I love Ever so much. That's so good. That's them at their.
I don't think I've ever heard Ever. I may have heard it once, but I don't remember.
Their 25th anniversary remaster or remix, which we have, it definitely helps the sound. But once you hear it, it's like, dang, that's them at their most. That's them at the peak of their neo-prog sound, I would say. That is them at that's them at their most neo-prog. That's the peak of their neo-prog sound. Of course, you also have Are You Sitting Comfortably, which I would probably put in there too, because other than War Heroes, great album. Sounds a lot like IQ, but it also sounds it doesn't sound as restrained because of the fact that it is Peter Nichols. I love Peter Nichols. He's such a great vocalist, but Paul Menel added a different feel to it, a little bit more of a weird hard rock aspect to it in a weird way, but also, I don't know what his voice was, but it was proggy hard rock, but it fit. Are You Sitting Comfortably? But I would say Dark Matter is definitely a calling card for their entire discography.
So Zoltan, it is like, given what John and you have said, which I agree with so much, it's shocking a little bit that I know there's an IQ. It's Road of Bones made the top 100.
Yes,
right?
it is. Road of Bones is the one that made the top 100.
How could it be that there's not a How could it be that there's not a Flower Kings album, or and at least one, and at least one more IQ album? I mean,
yeah, I get that.
Iconic albums like the one that you presented, so amazing.
Yeah, Dark Matter's really hard to argue with when it comes down to the IQ discography. I understand that the Road of Bones probably did nail it a little bit better, but Dark Matter is it's also very good, and it's structured, and from beginning to end, it just no weak points, very much like the Road of Bones.
Right.
Underrated, my thought process anyway. Should be there. Dad, your number one?
Yes, my number one, which actually the order of what I've said, Trilogy and In the Dead of Night.
There's no definitive list there. No.
There's no definitive list. This is just another one of those top three that I could have put in any order.
Yeah.
But for me, I find it's almost unbelievable to me that debut album by Ambrosia is not in the top 100. It's a perfect prog album, and I can't see why it's not there.
I understand that.
And we listened to a bit of it today, and it was just crazy, great stuff, and great keyboard playing, great singing, great songwriting, great everything.
Yeah.
You have an honorable mention, maybe?
Well, I'd probably pick a Flower Kings or an IQ. So
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know.
You want to go with your number one?
Oh, my number is my go, right?
Yep.
Your go.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my okay. Ooh, this is a tough one. I own both albums, but I didn't pull them out ahead of time. So I'm gonna go with my gut here because I like RPWL, the band, and for those of you who don't know who they are a German band, and they started off, if I'm not mistaken, doing Pink Floyd covers.
Yeah,
and
they
to
did.
me, yeah, they did. God Has Failed is the debut album by them, and their first two albums are very, very Floyd sounding, and then each album they done after that, they kind of developed their own sound.
Yeah.
I've always been a sucker that loved a person, a person who loves bands that sound like other bands from the 70s. And the main reason why, because one, they imitated, or it sounds similar, but the keyboards sound like they evolved. Like with the Genesis clone, the keyboards sound like they evolved. With RPWL, the sound sounds like they evolved. It sounds just like a cover band, but it's not a cover band. And I've always been a person who loved bands that sound, the clone bands, to me, personal preference, sound better than the original bands. Now, don't shoot the messenger. But I love this album. Now, an honorable mention, I was going to pick Ekelund's Mile. Why is an Ekelund album not on the top 100? To my knowledge, I looked at this list like 4 times. I didn't see it on there. That would be an honorable mention. That was what I was going to go for first. But I'm like, okay, I already mentioned Mile before, but I never mentioned, to my knowledge, of RPWL. Those are the 2 picks I'd pick. So that'd be my honorable mention, was Ekelund, and then RPWL is my number 1. I mean, they're like, if you never heard the band and you like Pink Floyd, like Gilmore era, you will love RPWL. And that's how you spell the band. And then when you edit the video, I'm pretty sure you'll put the thumb art of the album on there, so people can know.
About that. Yeah. So my number 1, because we did talk about this, and this is a conversation, obviously, but my number 1 is a very obvious band that we have already been talking about. And it's more of a representation of albums that deserve to be here. This is me picking out the obvious one, and the obvious elephant in the room. Stardust We Are by the Flower Kings. Although I would even say you can put Summon No Evil, Banks of Eden, hell, even you could probably put Back in the World of Adventures in there as well. Or I would see even a album like Unfold the Future too. But Flower Power, of course, too. But you have the iconic songs of like In the Eyes of the World, Just This Once, Church of Your Heart. You also have, of course, Merry-Go-Round, Dawn of the Universe, of course, Different People, Kingdom of Lies, Ghost of the Red Cloud, Stardust We Are, the title track. Perfect prog album, generally speaking. But you could also put about 2 or 3 at least other Flower Kings albums in there, and it would fit just as well. A few, a little bit of an honorable mention, or at least albums I would swap. You could take Fear of a Blank Planet, and you can swap them with either one of Stupid Dream.
Yeah, I love
or that. Signify.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I'd say. There's my list. And I believe we have capped that off. Do we have any words?
I'll start off with the ones that I think that are on this list that I think deserve to be there. Okay. Number 1 would be that I just think deserves to be on this list is Harmonium, the Canadian band, the second album. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of that sucker. They're from Quebec. To me, in my honest opinion, that's literally the best 70s album of prog of all time. If I had to pick a 70s favorite album of all, it'd be that. I even own that album in one of my little things over here. And it's that good. That deserves to be on this list of top 100. Now, moving on to my last 2 that should be on here. Number 68, which would be Space Shanty by Khan. If you never heard of Space Shanty by Khan, it's a 1 album and done. If you like Canterbury music, Canterbury, this is pure Canterbury. I own a Japanese pressing of the CD. It's very hard to find. It's made in 1972. If you've not heard this, Brian and Zoltan, you got to. If you can find it on YouTube or streaming services. It's good. It's very good.
Take a look at that.
It's number 68.
Yeah,
my third one would be number 69 by They're from Spain, called Bacamarti. If you never heard that album at all,
I have not.
like I said, my 3 picks are all bands that are like foreign vocals or more on the obscure side that I think should be on here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, number 69. They're I think they did 1 or 2 albums. It's a Spanish prog band, and if you not heard that one, and I'm pretty sure neither of you two have, you should check it out.
All right.
Number 68 and 69. Both of y'all should check out if you not heard them.
All right. Dad, you're 3.
Selling it by the pound and close to the edge, and God Bluff Vandegraff for sure.
Yeah, I love God Bluff.
But
I'll say there's some really good ones.
I know.
However,
out of 100, pick 3.
I'm gonna go with Trick of the Tail, Crime of the Century, and Animals. Script.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Roger who? Roger who?
Jeez. So that was fun. Should we go on to the next subject, which is we're basically just gonna talk about what we've been listening to, other genres we listen to, etc.
Right.
So, shall we start off? Let's just talk about this like it's a conversation. So, let's go around the room. Go ahead.
Because we watched Andy Edwards this morning, and he was talking about his top 10 greatest prog songs, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
So we took a listen to Awaken from Going for the One.
Yeah, we did. That was great.
And it was very easy to see why he picked that as the greatest prog song of all time. I might have not picked the same song, but I do see why he picked it. And it was so fabulous. Great to hear it again.
Mm-hmm.
And on that theme, when it gets to this time of the year, when summer starts coming around, it's great to hear Close to the Edge. Starts out with that summer feel. So I will probably be listening to Close to the Edge soon. But as summer, the other album that I've been listening to, and I don't know if this will show up, is I found this 2004 album by Todd Rundgren called Liars. It's not a prog album, of course. It's more like a, I don't know, it's maybe blue-eyed soul, soft rock kind of album.
Yeah.
But Todd Rundgren, I don't know. There's something about Todd Rundgren I really like, and
no, I really like that album too. Very, very good stuff. It just
and as summer comes around, I will certainly be pulling out all of the 70s soft rock, because that's what summer is for, 70s soft rock, and maybe a little bit of jazz, some Pat Metheny.
Yeah. That's
summer music for me. A little bit of soft rock, a little bit of maybe some Seals and Crofts or America.
Other genres you like, yes. That's good.
And some, Todd Rundgren, and that's what we'll be listening to. And maybe we'll be listening to Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, and we'll pump it into John's house.
I prefer in a silent way, but yeah, it's not a bad album.
Yeah. I don't know much about it in a silent way, but I'd like to. Dad, if you're interested in listening to it, we got to check it out. Yeah.
Other than that, I have been listening to a lot in the car as I'm going to my physio. I've been listening to a lot of Old Gentle Giant.
Yeah.
I know that's not outside of prog. It's just a typical prog, but it's just very easy to put Acquiring the Taste or In a Glass House on when I'm going to my physio, and absolutely fantastic. Makes my day all the time.
Yeah.
So soft rock and Gentle Giant and a little bit of Yes and and some Todd Rundgren.
Yeah.
That's what I'm listening to. Right,
John?
What I've been listening to, well, other styles outside of prog that I listen to, I'll just get into that real quick. I love jazz rock fusion. I love melodic rock, like the 80s type stuff, hard rock, AOR. I like progressive folk. stuff. I mean, like, there's prog folk, but I also like regular folk.
Yeah.
And I also love, like, other styles that I would listen to that'd be probably mainstream. Is I do like electronica, like Berlin style. It sounds like Tangerine Dream, but I do listen to the electronic stuff mixed with jazz. I'm definitely into that.
Zombie is
But
very good.
now for albums I have been listening to this week, I got some in the mail, and I will probably show at least 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Now the first band is a French band, a French folk band called and the Mead Yura. They're from France. I got them off of Bandcamp. They're like a psychedelic folk, progressive folk band with a little bit kind of the male singer almost reminds me a little bit like, if I'm not mistaken, Peter Hamill, but not. They only have 300 copies of this CD, so limited pressing. They're an independent band from France. All English vocals. There's like three or four songs that has a female on vocals, and it's mainly the guy. And they are on, kind of like I said, it's like they're folkish, a little bit of Canterbury, but not Canterbury, I would say. That's that one. Here's off the Marxy Records, Tom Penguin.
Cool.
I believe he's from France also, or on that label.
Yeah.
It's Pure Canterbury.
Oh.
Tom Penguin. It's on Bandcamp if you want to stream it. It's Pure Canterbury. If you like National Health and Hatfields from the North,
Oh yeah.
this album is probably going to be in my top 20. My 20. These are all 2024 albums for the most part, except for one. This one called Chorus. It's by an Australian band called Mild Life is the name of the band. Now, this is like jazz mixed with crop rock, psychedelic, and electronica all in one. Now, if I had to compare this band to anybody else, it's like a progressive jazz crop rock version of Daft Punk. Why do I'm going to say the pop mode? No, this is more like a Daft Punk with the vocoders and all that. If you like Daft Punk, it's kind of like in that style of the album that had the helmet on it, and it's like that. But it's got vocals. It's jazz funk. There's literally a lot of good bass playing on. I mean, if you never heard of this band, they're called Mild Life from Australia. This is his third album. I heard this. I heard their 2020 album. I ordered that one. This is God tier stuff. This is buy or die material. And the last one I'm going to show is another jazz fusion that I got in the mail by a bass player called Yorgos Bakanis, live in Athens. Now, I'm not a sucker for live albums. This is another story. The bass player is from Greece, and on guitars is Guthrie Govan, who literally shreds all over this album. The guitars, like, if you love jazz rock fusion, you will love this album. It's all live. It's a double album, this set, and all the songs are at least in the 14 minutes to 10-minute marks. There's a couple of them that are like 8 minutes. And there's like one song that's 8 minutes. The rest of them are 10 minutes plus between both discs. It's a really, really good album. So those are what I've been playing, mainly more on the jazzy side and Canterbury side with a little bit of folk. But those are the 4 albums that I've been heavily playing that I got in the mail that I think viewers should check out.
All right.
Sultan, what are your 3 or 4 picks? Albums or songs you've been listening to?
Yeah, well, there's some obvious jazz fusion. I did really, really enjoy that band Zombie from that was some really ridiculously good stuff. Really enjoyed that. Oh, crap, that was some pretty good stuff. I've been huh?
I said I have it in my crate, but I can't find it. The zombie band.
Oh.
If you don't know who Zombie are, they're a progressive rock band.
Yeah.
They're from the USA, and they do kind of like a Goblin style with electronica. Each album they do is different, but this new one that they have that came out is kind of like the first half of it is like it's like industrial, like 9 Inch Nails, but not 9 Inch Nails. That industrial feel. In the second half is more on the progressive electronic. Each album they do is two people in the band,
Yeah.
and it's a duo, and they're from the United States. I don't remember what state, but yeah, they do like progressive electronic.
Yeah.
One album that I own by them sounds is the epic on there is like pure prog keyboard galore. But if you like Goblin, they've been compared to Goblin. Some of their early albums, like the progressive side of Goblin, and like a
Yeah.
soundtrack stuff. But yeah, if you never heard of them, check out Zombie, Zombi. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you'll find the album art on Prog Archives. You can put it up there later.
Yeah, I can easily find it. Plus, there's been some the box, a little bit of I've been listening to a lot of the newer Echolin. I heard you listening from 2015, I believe. Phenomenal stuff on that album, very good. I also love their 2012 album, very good as well. I do have a little bit of we've been listening to a little bit of the new Alan Parsons album, which is also very good. Got a little bit more of the soft rock sound, which is again very poignant and very just it's his sound. But I was recommended this a bit ago, and I decided that I would try my absolute hardest to see how good this is. And I'm starting to understand that there are some really good songs on this, and I want to hear the rest of it. It's The Shaming of the True by Kevin Gilbert. And so far, there are at least 2 or 3 songs on this that is just like certifiable number 1 smash. All right, let's just leave it at that.
If you like Kevin Gilbert, he's in another band. I think it's called Toy
Thud.
Matinee or something like that.
Thud's great. Thud is
if
phenomenal.
you want to start getting into Kevin Gilbert, I think his other band is called Toy Matinee. He died.
There's also Giraffe. He's done in with Nick DiVirgilio.
Right.
Yeah, although I believe Nick DiVirgilio was the co-producer for this album, The Shaming of the True, right? And this is post-mortem. This album was done after the guy had died, unfortunately, but
right.
The guy has a prog voice, a very prog tone to his voice. He's a very weird voice. The thing about prog vocalists is that you have so many like Peter Hamill and Peter Gabriel. How many are there going to be starting with Peter? But Reinstalt also, who are just very weird, characteristic singers who have a very weird sense to their voice. Kevin Gilbert's got that same sense. Ray Weston Jr., Brett Cull also. All these guys all are very poignant and definitive prog vocals. And I would say this guy has that same prog tonality to his voice. So it's interesting to see. Thud is also
now. We're on to the final part of this episode. There are a couple announcements that are news now. We have broken up our formula a little bit. We're going to start doing progressive like album reviews on a separate series. Our first album that I would like for us to do in the next 2 to 3 weeks is the Chronicle of Father's Robin trilogy.
Yes, that
is
is
we're probably what we're going to do. The format I like for us to do is we review each album separately and give it a rating. And say which one our favorite one of the 3 is, and then give an overall score of the whole trilogy as a whole.
I think that's what we're gonna do for one for one of the episodes. Generally, we are going to be doing these it is going to still be considered the Prog Connection. It is going to be still part of the podcast, and it'll be uploaded as such. But it'll be under a new podcast it is going to be recorded very similar to this one, and we will be doing only reviews on there. It can be live albums, it can be studio albums, so long as it fits the definition of progressive, we can do it. And that's where we're going to go from there. As for the taping of the next episode, that is yet to be determined, and
what the topics are going to be, we don't know yet.
That is to be determined, of course. But we did give you a little bit of an insider, and another thing I would like to bring up is that I am trying to construct a public Discord server so that everyone can, all the viewers can interact. We'll have a public a chat so that everyone can interact, see how it works, and I think that would be a very interesting idea, see how much we can get fan interaction. I would like to see if we can get polls involved, if we can get people to see, we can ask around what albums people think we should review. We can get outsiders, like viewers' opinions, what they think would be good for us to do as a subject. We can figure that out. If you're at all interested in that, please leave a comment in the description, in the comment section down below. Of course, do you guys have anything else you want to add?
Other than you might want to put the Discord link in the description for people.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Shout outs as usual. Shout out to my family. About it.
Yeah.
Zoltan, I was just surprised in the top 100 in the Prog Archives.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that Saga never came up.
Right, that's a very good point. Yeah,
we forgot about Saga. How could we do that? About Saga.
I don't know how we forgot about Saga, but that is.
We did.
But that is something that we will have to. We'll
better late than never,
later.
Right?
Yeah.
We got it on the episode. Better late than not at all, right?
Right. Plus, let's be honest here. This is not going to be the last episode where we cover the Prog Archives and the lovely website that it is. It is a great website. It's not going to be the last time we talk about it because of the fact of how important it is and how much, how big of an audience and how much clicks still go to that website because of the fact that it has the progressive rock name and genre attached all over it. So we will discuss the Prog Archives website once again. Obviously, we've covered it a few times already, but I guess that just goes to show how relevant the website really is. But
other than closing thoughts,
but
sorry.
No, but yeah, I think the other one that was which was already mentioned is how is it possible that Echolin is not there? It's unbelievable.
I wanted to bring up Alan Parsons' project. I wanted to say
Alan Parsons.
Eye in the
Absolutely.
Sky. Maybe not Eye in the Sky, but at least Pyramid, Tales of Mystery and Imagination, I, Robot. Yeah, easily those ones too. Yes. But yeah. Other than that, do we have anything else?
I'd like to see one more thing.
Sure.
Well, since this episode was very long, we talked about the albums on Prog Archives. Yeah. Now, maybe for a future topic, there are other sites that do review albums for Prog that I think we should say as for what are alternatives to Prog Archives. There's a couple sites I know. I don't think we can bring that in a topic in the future. There are, but since we ran out of time, I won't list them now. But there are alternatives.
All right, we'll have to discuss that then.
You can review albums yourself. Rate your music is one of the big ones, but we could get that into another episode or something in the future.
All right, then that is something that we will discuss later. That was a great episode, I thought.
That was great.
That was fun. I had a great time. How are you guys feeling after that?
I feel it's our best one yet since the debut.
Great one. I'm very happy about that. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. If you enjoyed this, obviously hit that bell as well. And as always, we will see you in the next episode of the Prog Connection. Thank you very much, and bye.
Peace.
Peace out.